for authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello everyone, welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And tonight we're doing our Dare to Scare Halloween contest. And, well, I was really kind of disappointed, everybody. I'd sent out all these notices, and I was hoping people would email me back and get set up to join this contest. But sadly, I only got one taker, Mr. James Dunn, and he should be on the line with me here just any minute now. Guess what we're going to have to do is hope that people call during the show. Otherwise, we're just going to have one person in here, and there's going to be no need to put the poll up because he will have automatically won first prize. So, you guys, if you got any stories available, it's not too late to call me. It's too late to email me, but it's not too late to call me. Just go ahead and send it my way. And also, let's see. The call-in number is 832-632-7904. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to call in. And right now, like I said, we're just waiting. I had tonight's contestant on the line just a few minutes ago, and he wanted to call back when the show started, and I haven't heard from him quite yet. I'm sure he's got a reason for being a couple of minutes behind. Or he might be waiting for me to call him. In fact, let's see where I put his number.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, hey James, how you doing tonight?
Okay, how are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Now, I've already got the show live on the air, so we're good to go whenever we get ready here. And I believe you had sent me the title. Okay, the title of your story is Running Back in Time. Now, Jim, before we get started with this Running Back in Time, I thought I'd let you know in case you didn't catch it on the air that evidently you're the only one that contacted me, and you're the only contestant we have. And unless somebody calls between now and the time we end the show, we're not going to need a poll. You'll be the only winner we got by default. But that would mean also you got the first place prize, which is good.
That's a shame because I sent it out to like 1,700 people, and some people said they were going to send in stories and didn't.
I sent it out to a bunch of people, and I got a bunch of plus ones on Google and a bunch of likes on Facebook, but nobody showed up. Go figure. So
the way life is sometimes.
At any rate, if you want to, you can go ahead and get started and tell us this story, Running Back in Time.
Okay. I'll read it like I wrote it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Many years ago, I was in college in Pembroke, North Carolina. At the time, it was called Pembroke State College. Now it is called University of North Carolina at Pembroke. The college was founded for the Lumbee Cherokee Indians in 1880. The local high schools would inflate the students' grades so they could be accepted. Most all of them dropped out in their freshman year. Most students from northern states attended the school because the tuition was reasonable, and that was me. I had fallen head over heels in love with a beautiful blonde Southern girl who is now my wife. She attended a nearby all-girls college called Marvell Hall in Red Springs. We dated for a year, and then she dropped out to attend a business school in Raleigh, North Carolina. I would hitch back and forth on the weekends whenever my schedule permitted. Back then, people actually would pick you up if you stuck out your thumb and looked halfway decent. I was about 50 miles from Pembroke. It was about 50 miles from Pembroke to Fuquay-Varina, where she lived. The town is about 12 miles south of Raleigh. One time I got a late start. It was Halloween night, and the sky was overcast. It got dark an hour before it usually did. I did well catching rides, but suddenly my last ride had to turn off Highway 401 and drop me off about 5 miles from my destination. It was pitch dark out, and you could hear frogs, birds, crickets, and most everything else that walks in the woods at night. I had no choice but to walk and stick out my thumb as the occasional car or truck would pass me headed north. It was as I was walking that I heard in the distance the sounds of dogs barking. It was Halloween night, and I found myself seeing the clouds blowing by, and occasionally I would see a full moon. I became aware that the dogs were getting closer, so much that I could hear their feet as they hit the pavement. In a panic, I began to run. I had heard stories of wild packs of dogs that had killed people stranded on the side of the road. I ran like the wind when all of a sudden in the middle of nowhere I could see a telephone booth lit up about a quarter of a mile ahead of me. I found it strength to run faster as I heard the dogs getting closer. At least I thought they were dogs. Perhaps they were wolves. I reached the phone booth only about 15 seconds before the pack of wild animals. I was able to close the door as they growled, barked, and scratched at the glass of the telephone booth. Holding my foot against the door so that it would not fold open, I picked up the phone, and thank God it had a dial tone. I put a dime in and called Vicky's house. Her father answered and asked me where I was and what was all that noise. I told him my situation and location from the label on the phone. The dogs may have been part wolves as their eyes were blue. Each dog made eye contact with me as they tried to get in the booth and eat me. Each animal, and there were about 10, would take a turn at the telephone booth. One large dog jumped so high as to attempt to topple the booth. Soon I would see the lights of a car approaching slowly. It was Vicky and her father, driving their big black Lincoln Continental with the bright lights on. Seeing the dogs, he leaned on the horn of the car and the dogs ran away. What a relief to see them get safely into the car. The next day, Vicky and I took a drive back to the phone booth. We had clocked the mileage from the night before. We could not find the phone booth. We had pulled over to the side of the road where the booth should have been. A state trooper pulled in behind us and asked us if we were broke down and needed help. We asked him about a phone booth, and he told us that there isn't any phone booths on this stretch of highway. I told him my story. He confirmed that there was a pack of half dog, half wolves that were found and shot a few years ago. He then said that back then there was a phone booth in this area, but the phone company took it down about the same time. It was late, and before we pulled back on the road, I looked for the moon. I was puzzled. It was only a half moon. Every time I traveled that road, I would always look for the phone booth, but never found it again. And that's the end of my story.
So that was kind of like a do moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, the phone booth the phone booth was there. Back then, they would have little pull-offs on the side of the road that were created so you could pull your car off and use the phone booth in the deep south there on Highway 401.
So this is one of those old big full-length phone booths, none of the modern half-size ones, right?
Yeah, it was just old-fashioned phone booth, lit up. Yeah, it was definitely a Twilight Zone moment. That's why I entitled it Running Back in Time.
Okay.
But, you know,
well, that was a pretty good story. I kind of liked that one.
I've had things like that happen before.
Oh, you have? Do you care to share something with us?
Well, my brother, Bob, is an emergency room physician now. But years ago, we were living in New York, and we had an old 1954 Chevy. And it was snowing badly out, like a blizzard. And we had to go to school to pick somebody up. And we were on this road, which is a very straight road, but it's like a hill. We were going down the hill. And it was snowing hard, and the windshield wipers were going, and my brother was sitting in the front seat, and all of a sudden somebody slid through a stop sign, and we could see they were dead in the road straight in front of us. And there was nothing we could do. There was no way to stop. We had a head of steam up, and there was snow on the road. So I put on the brake, and then, we went right through the car and came out the other side. And my brother had crawled down into the well of the front seat of the car because he thought we were going to, hit it. And he crawls out from under the seat up on and looks backwards and sees the car still in the road. And he said, "How did we get around that car?" I said, "We went right through it, Bob." And he said, No, we couldn't. To this day, he can't figure it out. And he's a medical doctor. He still talks about it.
I don't think I can honestly say I've ever had anything like that happen to me, and I'm 54 years old, so I must be overdue.
I've lived in the Twilight Zone for a long time. So, you don't have anybody else calling in tonight with a story, huh?
No, not yet. However, having said that, a friend of mine, Aaron, kind of helped me throw a few things together for just such an emergency, just in case, because we were talking about the fact that nobody had contacted me and about how the chat room has been kind of dead lately. So he shared some links with me that I can share here tonight. One of them is about Halloween holiday trivia. And one of the things it's talking about here is that orange and black are Halloween colors because orange is associated with the fall harvest and black is associated with the darkness and death, which I knew about the darkness, but the orange was kind of a new one to me, so I lived and I learned. Jack-o'-lanterns originated in Ireland, where people placed candles and hollowed out turnips to keep away spirits and ghosts on the Samhain holiday. Well, now that was news to me. I always wondered how that got into the picture. Pumpkins have come in white, blue, and green. Great for unique monster carving. I've only seen the orange ones. Then it's got Halloween. Do what now?
I've never seen a green pumpkin. Well, I guess they're green before they turn orange. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Halloween was brought to North America by immigrants from Europe who would celebrate the harvest around a bonfire, share ghost stories, sing, and dance and tell fortunes. Oh, okay, so that's how it made it to America. Tootsie Rolls were the first wrapped penny candy in America, and they're still a big favorite with me. Ancient Celts thought that spirits and ghosts roamed the countryside. On Halloween night, they began wearing masks and costumes to avoid being recognized as human. As human, huh?
Sounds spooky enough to me.
Okay, so the Celts would wear the costumes so the ghosts wouldn't know that they were human, who'd try to blend in, I guess, or make them seem like they were frightening monsters at least. Halloween candy sales average about $2 billion annually in the United States. Well, no wonder M&M's isn't still in business. Okay, chocolate candy bars top the list as the most popular candy for trick-or-treaters, with Snickers number 1. I would have never guessed that one. Halloween is the second most commercially successful holiday, with Christmas being the first. Yeah, I think that one's pretty common knowledge.
I guess now you can't put anything with peanut butter in the trick-or-treat candy.
Really, I didn't know that.
Well, so many kids are allergic to peanut butter.
Oh, that's right. Now that you reminded me, I did hear something about that.
Yeah.
Okay, now, moving right along.
Oh, I got more stories. You want to hear stories?
Okay, hang on just a second. Let's get past this real quick. Bobbing for apples is thought to have originated from the Roman harvest festival that honors Pomona, the goddess of fruit trees. That was news to me. Black cats were once believed to be witches' familiars who protected their powers. That's why the movies will portray cats and witches together in the same deal. Sure, you can share another story with us.
Well,
oh, wait. Before you do, James, Typhon in the chat room wants to know, do you think dogs and wolves were spirits or flesh?
Well, I think those dogs were dead. Those were the dogs that they killed. And and the moon was, when I went back to look for the phone booth, the moon was only a half moon. But the moon that I saw was a full moon. So, I think I tripped dimensions there for a little bit. But those wolves are out to get me. Now, I've had encounters with the wolves, and wolves, they come up behind you. And if you turn and look at them, they stop. And if you turn around, they start running at you. Turn around, look at them, they stop. Creepy things, wolves. Yeah. So you end up walking backwards.
So you're waiting on you, you're backing up?
Yeah, well, as soon as you turn around, they'll start running for you. When you're looking at them, they will run at you. Unless, I guess, if they're in a pack, maybe they'll get by you.
Okay. So, you got another story for us? Pardon me.
As you know, we've talked about this before. I was involved in helping write the book, The Ghosts of Flight 401, which went down in the Everglades in 1973. And that, was for one solid year. I was a crew scheduler, and I had crews calling in, walking off of the planes because they were refused to fly them because the ghosts that for the Captain Bob Loth and the engineer Don Repo, one or the other would appear on their plane and tell them that something was going to happen. Either while they were in flight, they put the plane down at the first available airport. If it happened before they took off, they just walk off. So that went on for a solid year. And we finally figured out that they used some galley parts for the downed aircraft, which they weren't supposed to do. as replacement parts on some aircraft. So once we removed all the parts from the aircraft, the ghosts would only appear at surplus sales on 36th Street in Miami. So that was a harrowing time, you know, because I was the one that had to handle the first incident. And that was in Mexico City. The crew called me up from Mexico City and said they were refusing to fly the plane. And I said, and why are you refusing to fly? And they said, because we saw the ghosts of Captain Lost. And he said, number 3 engine's going to go on takeoff. And I said, what? These are ghosts? They said, yes. And no matter what you say, we're not flying the plane. So, you know, these are, at the time, these guys were making $80,000 a year. These were no bus drivers. And, so I asked them, I said, were you drinking last night or something? And they said no. So I turned another flight coming in from LA and switched crews. And the new crew landed. They found out what happened, and they refused to fly the plane. So we had to protect all the passengers. And a couple of days would go by, we'd send down some mechanics and an engineering crew, and they would take that plane off. They checked it out, and it checked out all right. When they took off, number 3 engine went. And that was all she wrote for the next year. Anybody saw those ghosts, they weren't flying the plane. You know? So it plagued us for a year.
Mm.
So they made a movie out of it, The Ghosts of Flight 401. And by John Fuller wrote the book, and they made a movie out of it. And Ernest Borgnine played the captain. But it's something that slips through history. But it really did happen. And you know, I had one story I tell about a pilot named FX Green. He had a drinking problem, and we had sent him to the Betty Ford Clinic, and he had like 3 wives, and he was always behind on his alimony, and he had carrot red hair, like that comedian Carrot Top. He walked in my office, and his hair was snow white. I didn't even recognize him at first. He said that, you know, the ghosts appear on the plane sitting next to him. Scared him so bad his hair turned snow white. And his hair never did come back to red. So, it was some spooky times when I was working for Eastern Airlines.
What did you used to do for Eastern Airlines?
I was a crew scheduler. I was in charge of making sure when there was a plane, there was a captain, a first officer, and an engineer. Nowadays, they only use 2, a captain and a first officer. They don't use engineers anymore. You use computers.
Why not? Everything else uses computers. Now, going back to your story a minute ago about the telephone booth, Typhon was asking in the chat room if you couldn't have called the phone booth back from your cell phone, or was that before cell phones?
Yeah, they didn't have caller ID then. My wife and I have been married 48 years. So it was 48 years ago.
Okay.
And they didn't have anything like that. Yeah.
You know, it would have been... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I said that would have been convenient.
Yeah. I was just thinking, there was a story, oh God, I can't remember it, but it was a year ago, 2 years ago, about a ghost appearing on a train plumb full of passengers right during broad open daylight, right in front of everybody. Does that ring any bells with you?
No, I don't remember it. That's a full body apparition. That's how these ghosts were appearing. They were appearing in uniform. Yeah. And so I had a 10-minute conversation with a full body apparition, and I didn't know it was a ghost at the time. You know, so that they'll appear. You know, this one had coveralls on and an old flannel shirt, and you know, he was an African American, and it was in a church. You know, but we sat and talked just like we're talking now. And then the person I was going to meet there pulled up, and he disappeared. Like, poof. Freaked me out big time. And you know, when I was about 7 years old, I saw a ghost in a church in St. Martin of Tours in Bethpage, New York. It was an old fellow with a gray beard, and he had an old suit on that didn't fit the time period. And we were sitting down in a pew, and this old man was right, you know, to the left of me. So I made everybody scoot over so he could sit down. And the old man came and sat down next to me, patted me on my leg, like, thank you. And afterwards, my family would say to me, why did you make us move over? There was nobody there. I could see him, and they couldn't. That was spooky enough for me then.
You know what? That reminds me of a book I read once. Have you ever heard of Latitude 33 Keys to the Kingdom by William Bosley?
Yeah, I have heard of that book.
Might not have been William Bosley, something Bosley. I've had him on my show a couple of times, but it's been so long, I'm having trouble remembering his first name. But he told the story of a man in that book who was ended up being a big researcher of ley lines. But this guy had went to a theme park, Disneyland or Disney World, the one in California, the one with the King Arthur's Carousel. And while he was there, he happenstanced upon an old man who had befriended him while he was there, and then just mysteriously disappeared. And he never saw this guy again. But while he was working sometime in the future, 20, 30 years later, he sees a picture of this man on the cover of a magazine. And it was associated with ley lines. The guy had evidently been researching it and writing numerous articles about it. And the guy was dead, but yet he had ran into him at this theme park. He had been dead prior to that running in. And this guy thinks that maybe he came back in time, in other words, and visited him there. He was saying that King Arthur's Carousel was right on a ley line, and it was drawing an open vortex that this guy managed to travel through. Do you think you've ever been maybe near some of these vortexes?
It could be that the time I saw that ghost, they were getting ready to build a nuclear power plant, and I was there to list the church. The church was going to become waterfront property because they were putting in cooling towers. So they may have done something. The real estate, the guy who owned the church, or represented the church, told me that I was one of 3 people that the ghost had appeared to in like 50 years. But they had been dynamiting and digging this huge hole for the nuclear power plant. So that might have stirred things up. Who knows? Yeah.
Okay, I got it now. It was Walter Bosley, not William Bosley. But I was actually very close. Anyway, but yeah, it was the Disneyland theme park located at 33 degrees latitude. Roughly somewhere up in there. But yeah, he thinks it was opening up a portal to the, you know, and they could come back through and visit. Now, here's something I was catching on this one website I thought I would share, being close to Halloween, is the origin of Halloween. While there are many versions of the origins and old customs of Halloween, some remain consistent by all accounts. Different cultures view Halloween somewhat differently. but traditional Halloween practices remain the same. Halloween culture can be
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, hey James, how you doing tonight?
Okay, how are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Now I've already got the show live on the air, so we're good to go whenever we get ready here. All these notices, and I was hoping people would email me back and get set up to join this contest, but sadly I only got one taker, Mr. James Dunn, and he should be on the line with me here just any minute now. Guess what we're going to have to do is hope that people call during the show. Otherwise, we're just going to have one person in here, and there's going to be no need to put the poll up because he will have automatically won first prize. So, you guys, if you got any stories available, it's not too late to call me. It's too late to email it, but it's not too late to call me. Just go ahead and send it my way. And also, let's see. The call-in number is 832-632-7904. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to call in. And right now, like I said, we're just waiting. I had tonight's contestant on the line just a few minutes ago, and he wanted to call back when the show started, and I haven't heard from him quite yet. I'm sure he's got a reason for being a couple of minutes behind. Or he might be waiting for me to call him. In fact, let's see where I put his number.
For authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello everyone, welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And tonight we're doing our Dare to Scare Halloween contest. And, well, I was really kind of disappointed, everybody. I'd sent